Today, I will go over all of the somewhat important characters in Blue Lock. We will start all the way from the beginning with Henri, and then advance through the characters. Additionally, I have a time limit of 1 minute per character. With that said, let's get right into it with the first one. So it's kind of thanks to Henri that we even have Blue Lock, which is kind of crazy to say. However, she was the one who put it forward to the Japan Football Union and told them about ego and how he could create the ultimate player to win the World Cup. Henri is also really sweet, as she always celebrates with the players after big wins, and we can clearly see that she cares about the players. However, she basically just hangs out with ego and helps him out with whatever he needs. On the topic of the Japan Football Union, let's go over to the chairman, Buratsuta. Now he's a money-hungry little gremlin and he is quite obnoxious. However, he has to get his credit where it's due, as he has helped Blue Lock massively. Outside of firstly trying to shut it down, he then helped Ego fund the Neo-Egoist League and then made it so that the U20 World Cup would be played in Japan. He also made a deal with Ego that he got to pick 3 players to join the U20 World Cup. As of recording this, it's only Sae who is kind of confirmed, as he wants to desperately play against Spain. Now let's just get over to the absolute GOAT of Blue Lock, who is none other than Ego, who is the director of Blue Lock, and outside of his bowl cut, he is extremely cool. He's the backbone of Blue Lock, and the reason why they have made it this far. Now, has he ruined the dreams of like 275 players? Well, yeah. However, some sacrifices have to be made for the greater good. He also used to play football, and was a rival and former teammate with the best striker in the whole world, Noel Noa, which is pretty cool. Anyway, thanks to Ego's philosophy of ego and individualism, he has helped the Blue Lock players not only become demons of soccer players, but he has also given them so much more, as he has helped them to realize how to utilize their potential to the max. And he continues to do so until he wins the World Cup together with Blue Lock. Ego is the real GOAT of the series and deserves some love. Now this guy is one of the characters who I really dislike in the series. Firstly, he messed up his and Isagi's chances of going to nationals just because he is a trash striker. But then, after the U20 match, when Isagi had gone through ruthless training in Blue Lock, Tada simply called Isagi's goal in the U20 match luck and even started to laugh. And because of that, I hope that he trips and breaks his knees. We then get to Kira, who was called the jewel of Japanese football. Firstly, he won the game against Isagi's team in the beginning before he went to Blue Lock alongside Isagi. At the start of Blue Lock, Kira was also the best player in Team Z, better than the likes of Kunigami and Bachira. But in the end, he got smoked by Isagi and Bachira, who eliminated him. And after that, he showed his true self, as he was a super self-absorbed person. There is some speculation that he will come back, but I guess that only time will tell. We then have the most useless guy out of Team Z, and he pretty much did nothing. It was said that his strengths were speed and technique, but that has to have been his own delusion, as I'm not even sure if he ever touched the ball. Anyway, he got eliminated in the second selection when he couldn't be carried by Team Z anymore. Now Eamon was too kind for his own good. As no one in Team Z wanted to be a goalkeeper, he took on the responsibility, which was his downfall, as when they arrived in the second selection, he hadn't improved like at all, and in the end, he lost and never made it to the third selection. Now with that said, I have to give him some credit, as his save against Rio's free kick was super cold, and it's partially thanks to him that Team Z was able to get through the first selection. Eamon also called himself a jack of all trades, but I guess being a good enough striker wasn't one of those trades. We then have Naruhaya, who did absolutely nothing in the first selection. However, in the second selection, he kind of played a big role, as he had teamed up with Barou and played against Isagi and Nagi. Naruhaya's strength was his off-the-ball movements, which Isagi later copied and made into his own weapon, which is why I said that he played a big role, as he helped Isagi grow a lot. However, at the cost of that, he had to be eliminated from the story. He was really interesting though, and I liked his guts. However, in the end, he couldn't change like Isagi was able to, and therefore lost. Now we get to Kwon, who is someone I found super interesting. Firstly, he was a very team-oriented player before he realized that his team pretty much sucked and sold out information to the other teams, in exchange for letting him score and then securing his own safety. Now yes, that's a very shitty move. However, it really showed just how brutal Blue Lock really can be, as someone who Team Z saw as a friend simply betrayed them for his own benefits. I'm pretty sad that we never got to see him again though, as he was eliminated in the second selection. Alright, so we now get to Igarashi. Now we actually have to give him some props, as he was able to actually get to the Neo-Egoist League, as he played for Bastard Munchen. However, it ended a bit tragically as he used his militia dribbling style against Rin. He got a yellow card and was subbed out, which led to him only getting a 3 million offer and was eliminated from the Blue Lock project, which is unfortunate, as his militia style was very interesting, as he basically was a god at drawing out fouls, which helped to give his team free kicks, and if he was able to perfect that style, then he would firstly be a scumbag, but also an unstoppable beast. Hey, at least, when Blue Lock wins the World Cup, he can brag that he knew them at least. Reichi is a very hot-headed character, who like everyone else, wanted wanted to become a striker, but has been forced to change his dream into becoming some sort of midfielder instead. In the Neo Egoist League, Raichi chose Bastard Munchen, and he finally got to show how good he really was. He served as a great line of defense with his insane physicality, but also immense stamina, and combined with his man-marking ability, it basically makes him unstoppable. He was so good that in the Ubers game, he was able to somewhat hold Snuffy down and caused him a bit of trouble. Now, obviously, I don't think that Snuffy went all out. However, it is still a very good achievement. Not to mention that Raichi managed to qualify for the U20 World Cup team, as he came in 21st place in the Neo Egoist League with a respectable 27 million yen offer. Moving on, we have Gagamaru. Now Gagamaru was already doing bits in the beginning as he helped Team Z score goals in the first selection. Not to mention that he acted as the goalkeeper in the U20 match and was able to make some insane saves without ever having played as a goalkeeper before. His insane height and natural reflexes make him such a strong and reliable goalkeeper. Also, fun fact, he also lives in the forest along with bears, which is pretty dope. Anyway, in the Neo Egoist League, he chose Bastard Munchen and continued to play as a goalkeeper and made a bunch of important saves, to the point that he managed to survive and come in at the 12th spot with a 50 million yen offer, which means that he can finally afford to move out from the forest and into a real house. Now we get to Kunigami. In the beginning of the series, he called himself a football superhero and was a super important character for Team Z, as they couldn't have cleared the first selection without him. Then, in the second selection, he teamed up with Ryo and Chigiri. However, he was beaten by Isagi, Nagi, and Barou. After that, Kunigami and Ryo faced off against Shido and Igarashi and once again lost, leaving Kunigami alone. He then disappeared for a while. However, after the U20 match, he came back through something called the wild card, and he had trained to become a copy of the best striker in the world, Noel Noa. Then, in the Neo Egoist League, he joined Bastard Munchen alongside both Noa and Isagi, where he managed to make some great progress, scoring 2 goals under the whole Neo Egoist League and showing his improvement. He ended in 8th place with a 66 million yen offer. Next up, we have my favorite character, who is Chigiri. Chigiri is just the GOAT, as he went ham with his speed in the first selection and scored some wonder goals, before then joining up with Isagi, Nagi, and Barou in the second selection after losing alongside Ryo and Kunigami. Anyway, there he helped them try and get revenge on Rin, and thanks to his speed, he served as a vital character. Sadly, he didn't score in the U20 match, but he was still a very important character nonetheless. Then, in the Neo Egoist League, he chose Manshine City and went completely nuts, as alongside Chris Prince, he was able to improve incredibly fast and served as the primary goal scorer for Manshine City, which helped him get 6th place in the Neo Egoist League with a 90 million yen offer. Next up is the Sunshine of Blue Lock Bachira. Bachira is basically Isagi's best friend, but also rival, and he's been with him pretty much the entire first half of the story, making goals together both in the first selection and also the second. He was also ranked the 7th best player in the third selection, and then in the U20 match, he got majorly robbed from scoring a goal thanks to Sendao coming in the last second and stopping it, which I'm still mad about, as Bachira deserved a goal. Anyway, in the Neo Egoist League, he chose FC Barca, and thanks to some guidance from Lavinho, he was able to figure out his monster a bit better, which helped him improve, as without him, FC Barca would really be trash. Thanks to his hard efforts by carrying FC Barca, he managed to get the 5th spot in the Neo Egoist League rankings with a 120 million yen offer. Lastly, we have arrived at the poster boy of Blue Lock, Isagi Yoichi. Now honestly, this whole minute could just be me saying all of his cool nicknames, but yeah, not to delve too deep, and to keep it at a surface level, he was the heart of Team Z before he created his insane rivalry against Rin in the second selection, where they played 2 games against each other, and Rin then finally recognized him. Isagi also kind of dogged on Rin in the third selection. Anyway, he then did the last and winning goal in the U20 match, and made the GOAT Itoshi recognize him as someone who can save Japanese football. Then in the Neo Egoist League, he chose Bastard Munchen thanks to his idol, Noah. There he created his new rivalry against Kaiser, and the two of them battled to see who could score the most each game, and Isagi pretty much won. He then basically declared war on both Loki and Noel Noa, so just the whole football world, as he told them that he would destroy them. At the end of the Neo Egoist League, he came in at a shared number 1 spot, with none other than Rin, with both getting 240 million yen offers. We then have Okawa, who was a player in Team Y, and he had some hype around him, as Kira explained that he was Senu High School's star player, and yeah, other than that, there is not a whole lot, except that he scored a goal on Team Z. However, it was basically only thanks to Niko, who did all the work. But still, a goal is a goal. Then we get to the Watchtower of Blue Lock. Niko was in the same team as Okawa. However, after Isagi completely dogged on them, Niko realized that to make an impact and stay in Blue Lock, he had to become more selfish, which was why he stopped only passing to Okawa and instead scored for himself. Niko was also a starter for the Blue Lock 11 in the Japan U20 match and acted like a really solid center back. Then in the Neo Egoist League, he joined Ubers, where, he only got even better from there and also unlocked Metavision, which definitely was deserved. In the end, he placed in 15th place with a 40 million yen offer. Now, I'm not sure about this. However, I think that he might be the youngest player in the Blue Lock project, so that's kind of cool. We then arrive at the king of Blue Lock, Barou. Now, I don't even know where to begin with this man. Firstly, he completely destroyed Team Z in the beginning. Later in the second selection, Isagi returned the favor by pretty much making him have an identity crisis and basically just being in shock by Isagi, who called him slurs. Just Blue Lock. Anyway, from there on, he then locked in and acted like a joker in the U20 match, where he managed with his unpredictable playstyle to score a goal. And then in the Neo Egoist League, he joined Ubers and became a literal demon as he scored goal after goal. And when he was up against Isagi, he was close to sealing off the game and winning, but ended up losing in the end. However, due to his perseverance, he managed to come in 4th place, kind of robbed of 3rd place, but whatever. Anyway, he ended up with a 150 million offer. We then arrive at Junichi Wanima. And no, I'm not going to talk about his other brother, as this is the only one who really matters. Anyway, Junichi, alongside his brother, whose name I can't even be bothered to look for, teamed up with Kwon in the first selection. However, in the end, they only managed to end the match even. After that, Junichi was the only one from his team to advance. And then, in the Neo Egoist League, he chose Manchin City. However, he quickly got eliminated as he came in 30th place with an 8 million yen offer. Moving on, we get to Zantetsu, who is another one of the really fast characters in the series. Basically only him, Chigiri, and Loki, but you get my point. His personality is basically that he looks smart, but is incredibly dumb. And honestly, it's kind of funny at times. Sadly, he hasn't been able to really show off yet in my opinion, as in the first selection he was overshadowed by Ryo and Nagi, and then in the Neo Egoist League he got to play, but since he played for PXG, it was hard for him to really stand out, but I can't wait for him to link up with the GOAT Chigiri. As I mentioned earlier, he played for PXG and managed to squeeze himself into the 19th spot with a 33 million offer. Then moving to the chameleon of Blue Lock, now Ryo is a fantastic character, firstly being just an insane player, and then being left behind in the second selection by Nagi, which forced him to try and stand on his own 2 feet for once, which didn't last for long. However, he tried. Anyway, he played a vital role in both the third selection and also in the U20 match, but it was mostly to either show Nagi how strong he had gotten or to help him. Then in the Neo Egoist League, he started to utilize his chameleon style a lot better and tried his best to help Nagi throughout the matches. But then, in the last match, something flew into him as Chris Prince made a pass, and he just locked in and scored his first goal of the Neo Egoist League, which was so insanely cool, and it helped him to land in 7th place with a 78 million offer. Also, I think that he will play a more major role in the upcoming arc, so be on the lookout for that. The last player from Team 5 is none other than Nagi. Nagi was just brilliant from the start. However, when he was beaten by Isagi for the first time, he said goodbye to Ryo and instead decided to team up with Isagi and Bachira, putting full trust in his ego while leaving Ryo looking like this. Anyway, he and Isagi evolved together and Nagi became really good. So good in fact, that he was recognized as the 6th best player in the 3rd selection. Not to mention how he scored the first goal of the U20 match, which was really sick. Then, in the Neo Egoist League, he joined Manchin City with Ryo and Chigiri. Then, in the match against Bastard Munchen, he made the most insane goal of the entire arc, as it shocked the entire world. However, after that goal, he said that he had beaten Isagi, and that's when his flame completely disappeared, and he became worse and worse, until he ultimately came in 24th place in the Neo Egoist League, which meant that he was eliminated. He then begged to come back, as he missed Blue Lock to an insane degree. However, he was denied, but that's when Burutsuta came with an offer to him. However, we don't know more about that yet. Alright, we then get to Tokimitsu, who, alongside Rin and Aryu, formed a team in the 2nd selection. However, pretty fast, both he and Aryu got in Rin's shadow. But still, Tokimitsu did manage to show off a bit, as he had his whole unlimited stamina thing, where he basically just didn't get tired and could run for a long period of time. After that, he wasn't used until the Neo Egoist League, where he joined PXG, and he tried his best to do everything that he could to get into the top 23 players. But it simply wasn't enough, as he ranked 25th with a 22 million offer. Then we have Aryu, who, like I said earlier, he played with Tokimitsu and Rin, but also got overshadowed. But still, he managed to get himself into the U20 match and saved a very important goal right before halftime. After that, he joined the Ubers as a center back, and along with his great height, I think that it was an amazing move. Aryu has insane jumping power and can jump very high, and combined with his long reach, he becomes a great wall of defense, which also helped him end in 13th place in the Neo Egoist League with a 45 million yen offer. Lastly, out of that team, we have Rin. Rin is a fantastic character, Firstly, he is the brother of one of the biggest aura farmers in the series, Itoshi Sae. He then went completely insane against Isagi in the second selection, which started their rivalry, and not to mention that he actually scored a goal against the world's 5 players. Obviously, he got in the starting 11 for the U20 match, and even managed to score a super outstanding goal. He then decided to join PXG, and he quickly became the GOAT in that team, as he scored goal after goal. Then when he was up against Isagi, he did a crash out goal and even started to bleed from after scoring. However, he casually just said that it felt amazing. Also in that match, Rin became such a beast that Kaiser and Isagi were basically forced to team up together just to stop Rin, who had gone completely insane. Moving on to the World 5 players, and more importantly, Adam Blake. Now Adam Blake is a player for the England national team. But not only that, he is also known as the top scorer in the Premier League. We basically know nothing about him other than that he scored a goal against Team Isagi and Rin, and also his physique is just godly, as he was able to go against the likes of Tokimitsu. Moving on to Silva, who plays for the Brazil national team. Silva also scored a goal against them. Silva, just like Adam, has an insane physique and is maybe the stronger of the two of them. But Silva doesn't only have that, as he also has insane high jumping power, which he used to jump higher than the stylish Master Aryu. Next up is Loki, who is basically just the most overpowered guy in the series. No, but he's called a prodigy of a football player, and he was the master for PXG in the Neo Egoist League and also a part of the World 5. Not to mention that he will be participating in the U20 World Cup, as he is only 17 years old. Loki also scored a goal against Team Isagi and Rin, mainly thanks to his insane speed, as he is currently the fastest character in the series. He is basically just like a fighter jet. Not to mention that he stopped a Kaiser impact from going into the goal in the Neo Egoist League, which once again is an outrageous feat. He only joined the Neo Egoist League to train Charles to become the best passer so that he could create someone who could match up to his ideals, but more on Charles later. Next up is Luna, who, like the others, is a part of the World 5 and also plays for Real in Spain. Luna also got to showcase a bit of his skills in the match against Isagi and Rin, as he also scored. Actually a pretty insane goal at that, as he went insane with his scissors, looking like a complete beast, and I can't wait to see more of him. Lastly, out of the world's 5 players, we have Pablo, who is a player for Argentina. Now, outside of Loki, Pablo is actually the one who I thought had the coolest playstyle and got to show off the most, as his passes were flawless and helped his whole team to score. Not to mention that his own goal was nothing special, but it just looked smooth. Now we start to get to some very interesting characters. Now Kiora was basically a no-name until his match in episode Nagi, but most importantly, the Neo Egoist League arc, he really got to shine. Kiora uses a style of breakdance while playing, which is so cool, as we can see him doing a lot of acrobatic moves when he has the ball to either try and get behind someone or just make a play. Not to mention that while he looks super short, he still has an insane physicality, as he has a surprisingly strong core, which helps him in his breakdance moves. In the match against PXG, Kiora aligned himself with Kaiser, as he helped him make Kaiser's first and only goal in that match, which was a really sick team up. Anyway, thanks to that and a lot more, he got himself into the top 23 and landed in 22nd place with a 26 million offer. We then get to a really underrated character, who of course is Himizu. Now Himizu has almost never been shown in the real story. However, he has gotten his fair share of highlights in episode Nagi. Firstly, one of his best weapons is his feints, which he is flawless at. But the most interesting thing is his reading skills, as he can detect lies. Not only that, but only from watching Chigiri closely was he able to find his weapon and then use it for his own advantage. But sadly, that's where it pretty much ends, as in the Neo Egoist League. He joined FC Barca, but was basically nowhere to be seen on the pitch and ended up in 31st place with a 7 million offer. After that, we get to Yuzu, who honestly sadly has nothing to him, like at all. He chose PXG in the Neo Egoist League, but sadly he didn't get to play a single game, so he was quickly eliminated from Blue Lock. We then have the Crow of Blue Lock, Karasu, who we were introduced to in the 3rd selection, and he was ranked in 3rd place, just after Shidu and Rin. Karasu has since then basically quit his dream of becoming a striker and is now a midfielder. However, that's where he thrives, as we first got to see in the U20 match, where, thanks to him being super analytical, he was able to shut down some attacks here and there. Not to mention that thanks to his spatial and tactical awareness, he has the best ball keeping sense in all of Blue Lock. Not to mention that he also has metavision, so he just gets better and better. In the Neo Egoist League, he chose PXG and was like their anchor, and he was able to shut down a lot of attacks, especially making Hiori's life a lot harder while still teaming up with Charles and the others. In the end, he landed in 11th place with a 55 million offer. After talking about Karasu, we have to talk about the ninja Otoya, who in the 3rd selection was ranked 4th, so after Karasu. Now Otoya is really cool, as his style revolves around sneaking behind other players' blind spots, which we have seen multiple times, but also against the 2nd best player in the story, who was Chris Prince. But not only that, as in the Neo Egoist League, he also got to show off some of his insane scoring skills, as alongside Bachira, he was basically the only one who did anything. And in the last game between Munchen and FC Barca, we saw Otoya doing a super dope looking jump volley goal. Otoya is someone who I would consider super underrated, and I would love to see a lot more from him. Anyway, he ended the Neo Egoist League in 9th place with a 63 million yen offer. We then go to Yukimiya, who, as he was introduced in the 3rd selection, was considered a top 5 player. Yukimiya has a super dope gyro shot, which we got to see as early as the 3rd selection, but that's far from everything, as Yukimiya also has crazy speed, not to mention his coolest thing, which is his one-on-one emperor style, even going as far as saying that there is no one better than him in a one-on-one, which I mean is a big claim. However, I'm super sure that he is able to back it up because he is insane. In the Neo Egoist League, they chose Bastard Munchen, and in the beginning, it was hard for him, as he could either ally himself with Isagi or Kaiser, but in the end, he and Isagi teamed up and made one of the sickest goals of the series in the Munchen City match. Yukimiya is also struggling with his vision. However, Ego has told him that there is a club that offered to help him with it after his and Isagi's team-up goal. However, Yukimiya felt like he hadn't earned it himself and told them to wait. Hopefully, nothing happens until he gets the treatment he needs. Moving on to someone with such a cool design that the author was too scared to use. Like, just look, he has stars in his eyes, but he still was not used at all. However, he did choose PXG in the Neo Egoist League, but not even Loki could help him out, as he didn't even get to play, and because of that ended with no offer. Next up is Nanase, who in the 3rd selection teams up with both Hiori and Isagi, and the 3 of them were actually putting in some work. However, after that, it has been a bit rough for him, as he didn't get to play in the U20 match, and it wasn't easy in the Neo Egoist League either. Nanase chose PXG, where he played with Tokimitsu to help Rin. We also got a flashback where Rin told him that he was ambidextrous, and that he could use both of his hands and legs, which would greatly give him a power-up. Anyway, at the end of the Neo Egoist League, he managed to snatch away the last spot with a 25 million yen offer. Next up is Taiga, and no, not the one from Toradora, but instead this wild-looking man, and he is in the same boat as Endoji, as he didn't get to play a single game, and the only difference is that Taiga chose Munchen City and not PXG. Next up is someone truly interesting, and it's Reiji. Now, he's not gotten much screen time in the original series, but in episode Nagi, he shines like a full-on crystal. That was kind of corny, so let's forget that. Anyway, Reiji is super cool, as he is into tarot reading, and was basically able to predict Barou's, Nagi's, and Chigiri's future, like not fully. However, he did kind of cook with it, and if that would have been used more, then I could see it becoming a really cool gimmick with him being able to kind of predict what will happen in the game, or at least give his predictions. Like, doesn't that sound super cool? Not to mention that Nagi even compared him to a copy of Isagi and himself in one, which is hella props to get from someone like Nagi. Anyway, he chose Munchen City and didn't really get to shine, but he still came in 29th place with an 11 million offer. We then move on to Haiji. Now Haiji looks super cool as his hair looks really different, but I like it. However, sadly, he got the unknown treatment, and he never really got to play. He chose FC Barca in the Neo Egoist League, and he got to play some games, which resulted in him getting 32nd place with a 6 million yen offer. I just hoped that we would have gotten to see him a bit more. We then have the GOAT of the series, who is none other than Hajime Nishioka. Now he's been hyped up the entire story, as he was called Aomori's Messi, but we have actually never gotten to see him play, as he's been injured every time, which I mean is just such a shame. However, I guess that he was just meant to be used as a joke character, but I don't know. That feels kind of meh, like I at least had huge expectations for him only to fall flat. However, with that said, he did play in the Neo Egoist League, as he joined Munchen City, but he came in at a shared last place with Igarashi with a 3 million yen offer. Now this is unfortunately another one of the randoms, and it's Saramadara. Yeah, I mean, I don't know what I can say really, as he has done nothing in the story. However, he did choose Munchen City in the Neo Egoist League, but ended up not getting to play in a single match, which means that he was eliminated. We then have Ishikari, who, fun fact, is actually the tallest player in Blue Lock. However, that didn't help him from becoming a total random. He did choose Ubers as his team, but like Saramadara, he didn't get to play a single game. We then get to our favorite sadist. Now Hiori is pretty interesting. We saw him quickly in the 3rd selection, where he helped Isagi to win over both Rin and Shido. Hiori also then played a pretty major part in the U20 match, but it took a while for him to get to start in the Neo Egoist League, as it was only in the Ubers game, and there he really popped off as he played as a midfielder, and not just a regular midfielder, but a totally insane midfielder, as it was in this game where he and Isagi created their insane no-look goal together, which still is just crazy. His streak then continued into the PXG game, where he was a starter and continued to help Isagi to the best of his opportunity. However, Karasu had him at a bit of a lockdown, so it was pretty hard sometimes. Anyway, Hiori managed to land at the 16th place with a 39 million offer. Moving on to Tanaka, who is another player who didn't get to play a single game. even though he picked Ubers in the Neo Egoist League. However, one thing that we know about him is that he is quite gross, as he likes to show others his boogers. After that, we have Shiguma, who, once again, no one really cares about, as he picked Ubers but didn't get any chance at all to play. We then get to the GOAT Kurona. Now, Kurona was pretty much a random until the Neo Egoist League, where he picked Bastard Munchen and instantly became Isagi's main playmaker, as he told him that he would align himself with Isagi. Kurona's skill is his speed. You might not have guessed, but he is really fast, and then also his insane positioning, which helps him instantly see the position that will help his team the most and be a disadvantage for the enemy team. Not to mention that he's just super cool with his shark teeth and braided hair. At the end of the Neo Egoist League, he landed in 18th place with a 35 million yen offer. Now, Sakura actually looks pretty cool, and his design is decent, but he still got the silent treatment. He joined FC Barca, and a fun fact about that is that Sakura is the only player to have picked Spain not to play in a single match. After that, we have the freak of Blue Lock Shido. Now, we first saw Shido when he teamed up with Igarashi and was challenged by Kunigami and Ryo, who then lost. After that, he was recognized as the second best player in the third selection. And in the U20 match, he did a whole 180 as he played for the Japan squad, as he was requested by none other than Itoshi Sae. In that game, he scored 2 goals and almost won them the game. After that, he joined PXG alongside Rin in the Neo Egoist League, and the two of them were constantly fighting, but both did really well, as both managed to score a lot of goals. And in the match against Bastard Munchen, Shido even managed to score a dope-looking header with the help of Charles. Then, when the Neo Egoist League was done, he had landed in 3rd place with a 160 million yen offer. Moving on to the U20 Japan players, and starting with the goalkeeper, now he doesn't have anything to his name, and it's honestly kind of embarrassing that he was the best under-20 goalkeeper in Japan, but has now been overthrown by Gagamaru, who has played like 5 games in total. Anyway, in the Neo Egoist League, he acted as the goalkeeper for Ubers and came in 20th place with a 28 million offer. Hayate has, honestly, a pretty cool looking design in my opinion, but he still ended up as a random. However, one cool thing about him is that his goal is to pretty much just stall and buy time for his teammates to come. Anyway, he joined FC Barca, but ended up coming in 26th place with a 20 million yen offer. We then have Wakatsuki, and it looks like he hasn't been sleeping for literally days. But moving on, he was also one of the no-names in the Japan U20 team, and later in the Neo Egoist League, he joined FC Barca and came in at the 33rd spot with a 5 million offer. We then move on to a defender who actually has a bit to himself. Now Neo was a part of the Iron Wall defense, and his job was that of the stopper, who are defenders who rely heavily on their strength and man-marking opponents. Combined with his insane physique, that makes him into a pretty crazy defender, as he also has his Doberman charge, where he charges in towards someone and creates a physical duel between them. Neo decided to join Manshine City, but unfortunately came in 27th place with an 18 million offer. I'm going to be honest right now, but I really don't want to talk about this man, as he is just so boring. Like, he looks so mid, but yeah. He was a winger in the Japan U20 squad, and then moved to PXG in the Neo Egoist League, but came in 33rd place with a 5 million offer, which was the same as Wakatsuki. Moving on to Darai, who was also a part of the Iron Wall defense. Darai's strengths were his off-the-ball moments, but also his predictions, as he could apparently smell his opponent's movements, which sounds like a lot of cap, but sure. In the Neo Egoist League, he joined FC Barca and rightfully came in 28th place with a 15 million offer. Now finally, the gods have blessed me, as we have an interesting U20 character, and that's Aiku. Now where do we even start with this man? He was the best defender in the whole U20 game and stopped Blue Lock from scoring as much as he physically could, as he was honestly the only defender, pretty much. Aiku firstly has a super good build, which makes him able to battle both small and strong opponents, but that's far from everything, as he also has great spatial awareness. His reflexes are off the charts, and to top it off, he also possesses metavision. Not to mention that before becoming a defender, he was a striker, which means that he still can do some really nasty shots. In the Neo Egoist League, he chose Ubers, which was an amazing choice, as he really got to shine and came in 10th place with a 60 million offer. Moving on, we get to the literal GOAT of the series, Sae. Now Sae was a prodigy, as at only the age of 13, he was scouted by Real and was determined to become the best striker in the world. However, when he came back to Spain, he looked completely destroyed and said that he basically had gotten crushed and that he had changed his dream to becoming the best midfielder in the world. This made his brother Rin really angry, but Sae then destroyed him in a one-on-one. After that, Sae played in the Japan U20 game against Blue Lock, where he scored 1 goal and then made 2 assists to Shido. However, both you and I know that he didn't even try at all. Anyway, Sae is a part of the new generation World 11 and has promised Burutsuta to join Japan in the U20 World Cup once they get out of the group stages because he wants to get revenge on Bunny, who is likely the one who crushed his dreams. Sendo was the main forward of the Japan U20 team and also their ace, but yeah, in the game against Blue Lock, it didn't go his way as he didn't score a single goal. However, he did save a very close goal, which gives him some points on the board. Then, going to the Neo Egoist League, he joined the Ubers, where he managed to do a lot better by coming in 17th place with a 37 million yen offer. We then get to the Japan U20's Sunshine and just look at him. He legitimately looks so insanely cool. Anyway, Naru is actually a really underrated character, as he was pretty cool in the U20 match. Firstly, he is a part of the Iron Wall defense, and he is also a fast type of defender who has super fast acceleration. Honestly, he was done dirty. In the Neo Egoist League, Naru played for Bastard Munchen, where he got a fate worse than death, which was that he didn't get to play in any matches. Now this guy was the first guy that I noticed in the U20 Japan team, just because he looks so cool, and he looks a bit like a fox. Now was he a good player? No, not at all, but he was very cool, but ended up in the 35th spot with a 4 million offer. We then get to the world's best striker, who is basically Isagi's original inspiration for wanting to become a striker. Anyway, Noah was a master in the Neo Egoist League and handled Bastard Munchen. Currently, he is the best striker and has even won the Ballon d'Or against the likes of Ronaldo and Messi. Noah is just insane. However, his greatest feature is his ambidexterity, which means that he can use both of his legs, not to mention that he is the most complete striker in the series. Anyway, in the beginning, he was really nice to Isagi, but later down the road, he revealed that he just used Isagi to basically try and evolve Kaiser. This made Isagi super mad, as his idol, whom he had looked up to his whole life, basically said that he didn't care about him, and Isagi then straight up declared war on him and told him to wait on the top, as Isagi would bring a theory that would crush him. After that, we have Ness, who is also a player for Bastard Munchen. Now Ness is just insane, as he is an outstanding playmaker, and with his flawless dribbling, he can basically do anything he wants, not to mention his passes, which are like crafted to perfection. It sounds like I'm kind of glazing him right now. However, he is truly just that good. But to be honest, he kind of just acts like Kaiser's lackey and tries to do everything he can to help him. However, it looked like at the end of the Neo Egoist League, Ness had finally found his own ego, and I can't wait to see more of that. In the end, his salary landed at a 130 million yen offer. We then move on to the literal GOAT of the Neo Egoist League, who is, of course, Kaiser. Now Kaiser acted as the primary rival for Isagi during this arc, as he is Bastard Munchen's main striker. Now Kaiser is a part of the new generation World 11, and for good reasons, as he is just a crazy striker. He even has a technique called Kaiser Impact, which basically is that he possesses the fastest kick swing in the world, and Noah even confessed that Kaiser surpasses himself on that, but that's far from everything he has in store, as he also has predator eyes combined with metavision, making him insane. Later in the Neo Egoist League arc, Kaiser confirmed that the only reason why he is playing in the Neo Egoist League was to get a bid from another club and get out of Noah's shadow, as in Bastard Munchen, he can't become the best striker. Anyway, he achieved that goal by getting an offer from Real worth of a total of 400 million yen. We then have the only noteworthy player from FC Barca outside of the Blue Lockers, and that's of course the Master Lavinho. Lavinho has a fierce rivalry with Noah, as they are always at each other's throats. Lavinho's playstyle is a lot like Bachira's, as he just tries to have fun and dribble a ton. Honestly, I don't know what more I can say about him, except that he is one of the best strikers in the whole world, and that he scored a goal against Noah's team in the Neo Egoist League. Moving on to another master, and this time it's Chris Prince, who has been considered the world's second best striker, only second to Noah. Chris Prince is the master of Munchen City, and is one of the best masters in the whole series in my opinion. It's a tie between him and Snuffy for sure. Now Chris Prince has a literally perfect physique, as he has maximum stats in everything, not to mention that he possesses an insane knuckleball. We then have Agi. Now Agi also plays for Munchen City. Now Agi is a good player, however, he got kind of done dirty in the Neo Egoist League, if I'm honest. Anyway, Agi's nickname is the Doctor, as he has a lot of knowledge when it comes to football, and not to mention, an obsession when it comes to analyzing players' skills. He tried his best to help Nagi in the Neo Egoist League. However, as we know, it didn't work out in the end. In the end, Agi managed to secure himself an 80 million offer, which is super low. We then get to Uber's master, who is Snuffy. Now Snuffy has been crowned as the best overall player in the world by Noel Noa. Snuffy prioritizes teamwork and strategy more than anything else, as that's what he grounds his teachings on. And if we move on from his strangely large nose, then we can see that he also has an insane physique, which I guess every pro has. However, in Snuffy's case, it's also thanks to him incorporating Jujutsu, which makes it so that Snuffy has a much better sense of balance. Moving on to Lorenzo, who is a player in the Ubers. He is also kind of Snuffy's guard dog, as he owes Snuffy his life, as Snuffy saved Lorenzo from poverty and made him into the player that he is now. Lorenzo is also a part of the new Generation 11, and one of his nicknames is the Ace Eater, which I mean just sounds so insanely cool. Lorenzo uses something called zombie dribbling, where he basically makes his upper and lower bodies totally uncoordinated, which makes it super hard to block him and try to shut him down. In the end, he managed to get a final offer of 280 million yen. We then get to the last player in the Neo Egoist League, and that's Charles. Now Charles is the literal embodiment of a prodigy, as he is only 15 and already one of the best midfielders in the series. Also, as mentioned earlier, Loki only agreed to join so that he could make Charles improve. That's how much trust Loki has in Charles. But yeah, his passing accuracy is disgusting, and alongside his metavision, he is a different beast and managed to secure a 110 million yen offer in the end. We then get to our last new Generation 11, who is Bunny. Now there is not much about him, except that he is a prodigy who plays for FC Barca's main team alongside Lavinho. Bunny has a scar on his face, and it's still unclear just how he got that, but I'm sure it will be explained later on. And he is also very tall, standing at a whole 191 centimeters. We then have two other characters who I quickly want to mention. Firstly, we have Mick Moon, who was one of Snuffy's best friends and one of his teammates. Sadly, we learned that in Snuffy's backstory, both he and Mick Moon were having a decline in terms of their football abilities, and while Snuffy got back up on his feet, Mick Moon couldn't and later took his life. Lastly, we have Ray Dark. Now we don't know much about him except that he is the president of PIFA and that he helped Kaiser get out of prison and helped him get into the bastard Munchen Academy. That has been every somewhat relevant character in Blue Lock explained. If you liked the video, don't forget to like and subscribe, and also let me know in the comments what other videos you want to see me do.